Next on Primary Care, are we aging well or just aging? The biology behind better, longer living.
A lot of times we'll focus on lifespan, which is, how long do people live, so on and so forth. But that's not really what takes you to the doctor in the first place. Health span is more of how long do you live without symptoms. That's what you're interested in.
Hello, and welcome to Primary Care, the show dedicated to improving the health and care of African Americans. I'm your host, Dr. Lonnie Joe. Many of us are living longer, but too often in our community, we're living sicker, managing chronic disease instead of enjoying strong, independent lives. In Detroit, life expectancy is about 70 years compared to 76 years statewide, which forces us to ask, are we aging well or just aging? Today, we're taking a closer look at the biology of better, longer living and why it matters for African Americans who face higher rates of high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease, to mention a few. Our guest today is Dr. James Blessman, Assistant Professor of Family Medicine and Public Health Sciences at Wayne State University School of Medicine. He is a prevention specialist dedicated to helping Detroiters add not just years to life, but life to those years. Dr. Blessman, thank you for joining us. So glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Jim, I heard you give
Took
a
you
talk.
a long time, but that's all right.
We got a long line. We moved you up in the line.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
it.
all right.
Jim, I heard you give a talk not too long ago that just was outstanding. It stimulated all kinds of things in terms of better living and living longer and what we're doing wrong now to achieve that. Tell me, how did you get into this?
Well, I would say my path here really started with some work looking at people with hepatitis C. And what I noticed was a pattern of they not only had hepatitis C, but they had many other chronic diseases also. They get many different cancers and that type of thing. And that led me to kind of just thinking about energy and disruptions in metabolism that might be kind of the leader of chronic disease. And so it's been a very interesting journey. I've learned a lot, and these things weren't really taught in medical school.
Right.
So we're kind of on a different path, and I'm really excited about my understandings about health today.
You've said in the past that we're solving the wrong problems in healthcare. Explain why.
Yeah, so basically, when you take a kind of a metabolism perspective, much of what we do is we treat the symptoms of that disturbance. If it's high blood pressure, we try and do things to lower the blood pressure. It's not really the thing that causes the blood pressure to be elevated in the first place. Same thing for diabetes, all these different conditions. And so we're really treating the symptoms. Now, we're working really hard. I mean, physicians spend a lot of time, all those in healthcare, many hours in the clinic. But despite all of that, notice that our health outcomes are not really that great, which began, that's how I got to the issue of, well, really, are we focused on the right problem? Because if we're solving the wrong problem, we don't necessarily see those outcomes.
You'll never get an answer.
You never get an answer. And I think the other thing about it is there's kind of two principles: focusing on the right problem, and then I'm going to say sharpening your axe. So the story behind that is two people, chopping wood, and start at 8, end at 4. One takes a break from 12 to 1, comes back, chops more wood than the person who stays there all day, okay? They do that a couple days, and the guy goes, wait a minute, now we start at 8 and we end at 4, you leave for an hour, but you chop more wood than I do. He said, where do you go for that hour? Dude goes, I go to sharpen my axe. And so a lot of times we don't look at the things that we do to make sure both we're focusing on the right problem and we are doing it in an efficient manner.
That's a great analogy, to tell you the truth. A dull axe,
right?
It's going to make you work harder.
You're going to have to work harder.
Work longer.
Right.
And may not achieve the same results in terms of how much wood you chop.
Well, this is why it becomes particularly important, because when you look at health from the perspective of metabolism, the problem is what's happening is your declines in your ability to make energy gets you to the point where you don't have enough energy to pay all of your metabolic bills. Sometimes you pay the heart bill, sometimes you pay the lung bill, sometimes you pay the kidney bill, sometimes you pay the brain bill, but you don't have enough money
To pay them all.
to pay them all. That's why you got to be efficient about and focused about what you spend your time on, because everything, even the time that you spend here today, everything is an energetic cost to you. Right? You have to spend energy to process this information to know whether or not is this something that's got me in trouble or not got me in trouble, so on and so forth. And the energy that you spend on this, you can't spend on other things. And if we really understood that, it's kind of like if you could only charge your cell phone once a week. There's some calls they bring, you're not really worth my battery life. You wouldn't take the call. Right? And if we really understood that, we wouldn't get into some of the stuff that we get into that's really not, in our focus of control, because then you're kind of wasting energy.
So in the past, a lot of us have heard you say we're leaving 20, 30 years on the table. Is that because we don't have enough, or we don't proportion it properly when it comes to the energy?
So let me say this. This is what we know. And you can look this up. And in fact, I'll throw out a couple words. Make sure the audience, when you hear these words, you write them down and you make sure you search them, because what's going to happen is the algorithm is going to pick those words up and they're going to start feeding you more information to help you along that lines. So one of them is blue zones, right? And so we know in the blue zones, these are places where people have a tendency to get to 100 years. Okay, and they get to 100. You're
talking worldwide.
Worldwide,
right?
And they get to 100 years well, and so we know that we could probably do about 100 years well. That's the model. So we're down around 70, and the question is, why is that? And how do we get to that particular place? Now I'll tell you, there's an interesting story too. Luigi Cornaro, this guy lived around 1500s. And he ate and drank like a fish. And the doctors at the time, he felt very sick. And the doctors at the time says, you have 6 months to live. I know people have probably heard that from time to time. You have 6 months to live. Okay, so he ends up changing his diet, and he kind of goes to mainly soup, minimizes his calories. He feels better in a week, decides to continue that practice. This guy lives to be 100 years old, can still ride a horse. He has all of his teeth. He has no deficits in his vision, no deficits in his hearing. And it's reported that when he died, because he didn't feel ill, he sat down in a chair, took out a piece of paper, wrote out his will, sat back, and left the building. I mean, that's sweet. I'm just saying.
That's the way to go.
That's
a condition to go with.
That's the way to. But here, and he did all of that without all the knowledge that we have today.
So at 70, we're missing some time.
Yes.
But that 70 is you're not arriving at 70 in good shape.
That is correct.
Okay.
So
there are things that are happening. There are lifestyle consequences, events that occur, and you're still checking out at 70.
That is correct. And so what you're hitting on is the difference between lifespan and health span. And a lot of times we'll focus on lifespan, which is, how long do people live, so on and so forth. But that's not really what takes you to the doctor in the first place. Health span is more of how long do you live without symptoms. That's what you're interested in. How long do you live before, I'm depressed? How long do you live and you can still breathe? How long do you live and your joints don't hurt so that you can kind of get up and do the things you want to do? That's what you're interested in. That's health span. And there are a lot of things about lifestyle that impact health span, and that's what we need to focus on.
So from a standpoint of view of medical events, there are social events.
Mhm.
There are sociological events that affect us. The so-called weathering concept, which is gaining steam again in the literature. We had a lady, a professor from Ann Arbor, as part of a show 3 years ago. Her work from the early 90s is cited more now than certain departments in medical schools around the country in terms of how lifestyle and occurrences during life at ages. She started at 16 with pregnant ladies, and how that shortened their lifespan just because of the road that they have to travel after that. Not having a major event such as a heart attack or a stroke or whatever, but the lifespan was shortened early on as opposed to getting to 70. I mean, they never make it. But here again, this discussion has been subdued, has been downplayed. How do we bring this out as a conversation and make it relate to intervention? What changes can we make based on a lot of the data that you deal with?
Well, let me say this. First of all, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one problem in terms of defects in our metabolism and our ability to produce energy.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 states whether or not people feel safe or they don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is if you don't feel safe, the consequences of that's when your stress response is turned on. The consequence of that is it turns off your body's ability to heal, because when you're in a stress state and you're fighting a lion, this is not the time for your healing processes to be going on, right?
It's time for energy.
It's time for energy.
Right.
So you shut that down, so you don't have time for healing. But the idea was the lion goes away, the bills don't, right? So you stay in that stress state, it shuts your system down, it leads to kind of negative emotion, and then the consequence of the negative emotion is 2 things. One, the thoughts behind the negative emotion are usually creating circumstances that creates more negativity in your life, and those negative emotions can be transferred to people around you. So you notice that, if you're around a lot of negative people, and that's just called it's like resonance, emotional contagion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're around a lot of people arguing, complaining. Well, put it like this. I take 2 tuning forks, they're tuned to the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
I tap this tuning fork and I stop it. This one will be resonating,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So what happens is when you're around a lot of negative energy, it's going to resonate with the negative energy that is somewhere within you. It may be way down here, but the more that you're in that environment, it will start to become more pronounced, and you'll notice yourself doing things that you wouldn't necessarily do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can ask yourself, do you make good decisions when you're angry or frustrated? Usually no. So the idea is to try and get to a place where peace and happiness is more familiar as opposed to fear and frustration, and you'll find that you make better decisions in that state than over here on this state.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, the arena where the battle takes place is 4 areas: mental fitness, nutritional fitness, physical fitness, social fitness. Social fitness, and let me just say this, we tend to focus on physical fitness and nutritional fitness, but the real key is mental fitness and social fitness. And you say, well, why is social fitness so important? Well, we have a tendency to do what we see other people do, okay? So a lot of our behavior, and that's just, we have something called mirror neurons. You can write that down,
Mm-hmm.
look that up too.
Mm-hmm.
And what mirror neurons do is when I see you do something, I encode that like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it, and they
Mm-hmm.
think it helps us learn certain behavior. Well, when you're in a place like this, where the abnormal is so common to appear normal, right? I mean, that's basically what's happening.
What's happening? Yeah.
Then now it's easy for you to adopt those behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even think of as anything wrong. We're thinking, oh yeah, Yeah, your knees are supposed to hurt. Oh yeah, your back is supposed to hurt.
Right.
Oh yeah, blood pressure's a little high, not a really big deal.
Yeah.
We think all that stuff is normal.
So
It's
we
not.
condition ourselves to accept these things
That is correct.
to some degree, okay?
That's correct.
That's the mental portion that you were pointing out of the four. Jim, we got to take a break and pay these bills.
Okay.
But if you take me to China today and leave me there for 5 years and come back, I guarantee you I'm gonna speak some Chinese. Okay? Good. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're gonna take a short break.
Sometimes winning is simply a matter of not quitting. In the 85 years of the American Diabetes Association, we've had many wins, but we've never rested. Because 1 out of every 10 Americans has diabetes, and they rely on us every day, just like we rely on you. With you by our side, we can be there for more people and more families in their moment of need. Go to diabetes.org to join us in the fight to end diabetes.
Welcome back. We're here with Dr. James Blessman, Assistant Professor of Medicine at Wayne State University in the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health. Jim, this is, over the top from standpoint of view of the time that we have to devote to this. We can make an entire university course out of this, and it should be. Maybe something we can discuss offline on how people start directing this, especially in medical schools and what we're teaching. But talk to us more about physical fitness and mental health.
Well. So let me. I want to finish one quick thing.
Sure, go ahead.
On the social fitness piece, because remember, I said the two missing areas: mental fitness, social fitness, and I started on the social fitness piece. The thing is, and I believe that we all come here on purpose, okay? And there's something because what we know for each individual, there will never be there has never been and will never be a you. So if you don't do it, no one will ever be able to do it like you can. And when people are not doing their thing, they will always feel a little bit uncomfortable about life. And so it's important to understand your why. And what becomes important about that, though, is because everybody's going to come at you with, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. You have to know why you are here, and you have to focus. So I always say the sculptor creates his masterpiece by removing everything that doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to park that social fitness piece over there, and then we'll go to let me bring you back one quick second. Sorry. And I always go to the when you're thinking about why you're here and your purpose, which is very important, realize that everybody may not understand what you are here to do. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like if I'm able to do this, it's like if Noah, who was told to build a boat, was born today, he would go around and say, I got this idea about building a boat where there's no water around. What do you think about that? Right? And people were like, dude, boat, why? What we need a boat for?
Why would you waste that money on?
Why would you waste
that time, that energy?
There you go. You'll understand.
Not enough water to support it.
So I just want to end this on, if you were supposed to build a boat, build your boat because it's going to be important for other people, okay? And the resources to build that boat will show up when you start along that path and you don't pay attention to other things. Okay, now I want to park that over here. I want to go to the mental fitness part. And this is critical because for a couple reasons. First of all, thoughts become things. I'm going to say it again. Thoughts become things. There's nothing that you see here in this room or around that didn't start here first, okay? So how you think becomes very important. Now you can say, well, what is a thought? A thought is a connection between nerves that fire in a pattern. You don't have a nerve for cat and a nerve for dog. You have a connection, a network of nerves that fire in a pattern and you think cat. You have a connection of nerves that fire in a pattern and you think dog. The more times you think about that, the stronger those connections become. So when you look at your experiences and how many times you have gone over those things, you're creating grooves in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens, because so people will say, well, why do I do the things that I do? Mm-hmm. Well, when you have when you've rehearsed a certain pattern, you can talk about habits and that type of thing, you have these grooves. And so when you go to try and go out of the groove, it's easy to fall back in the groove, particularly when you are stressed.
So there is a synergy to the repetitiveness.
No question about it.
Whether the outcome is good or bad.
That is absolutely correct. And you have to pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you can say, well, how do you get rid of the grooves, right? And let me just say this. These grooves exist not only for the thought, but for the emotions. Mm-hmm. So the more times you experience the emotion, the easier it is for you to experience the emotion also. And you'll know some people, and you see them when they come, because you don't feel good about it, that they're just always unhappy. Something is always wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They have this groove that they fall into that particular pattern. And so the question is, how do you change that pattern? Well, there's a couple things that you can do. And for example, meditation. Meditation is like a fresh snow that covers over the grooves. And so what you'll find is 10 minutes a day, taking deep breaths, focusing on your breath, inhale, exhale is twice as long as inhale, getting that to around 4 to 8 breaths per minute. It's like a fresh snow. And within 30 days, you'll notice that other thoughts will begin to come into your mind. Now, you have what's called a default mode network. Write that down, default mode network, DMN, right? Your default mode network is the collection of nerves in your brain and their connections that you use to define who you are. Mm-hmm. The reason why that's important is that it filters out things that are inconsistent with what you believe. And how it's a problem is there could be things in your environment that are helpful to you, but if it doesn't align with your default mode network, you won't see it.
Right.
Just to give you a glimpse of that, people have probably played the game Punch Bug, you know, where you used to see a Volkswagen. If you see a Volkswagen, you get to hit the other person, right? And so now the next thing you know, you start seeing a lot of Volkswagens. Well, people didn't just go out and buy the Volkswagens, they always been there. But now your radar is tuned into that, so now you see it.
Right.
When you weren't tuned in, you didn't see it.
You didn't notice.
You had to notice it. So the goal is to get to where your mind is your ally and not your enemy.
So all of these processes you're talking about, to my mind, produces strength.
Yes, it can.
Okay?
It can.
Strength is important. You've said in the past, it's a predictor of longevity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? How does that relate in terms of daily living, work, family, society, all of our environment?
Okay. So there are multiple processes. So we're going to go back to the energy thing. And mitochondria, another word, that degrades over time, right? And so with all of our lifestyle that has a tendency to have a negative impact on the mitochondria, the stimulus to make more mitochondria comes from exercise, which is why, notice that, okay, if I treat hypertension, doesn't necessarily help my diabetes. If I treat my diabetes, doesn't necessarily help my depression, so on and so forth. However, if I get you to exercise,
treat all of them.
Treat all of them. I get you to meditate.
Treat all
I
of them.
treat all of them. That should let you know, kind of proof of concept of the importance of energy in your body's ability to regulate. Now you process 1,000 billion chemical reactions every second. If you were to pay attention to what happens when I just do this, it's mind-boggling. If we would just get out of the way, we don't know how good we could be. I'll just say that. We don't know how good we could be. We better figure it out with what's coming. But we don't know how good we could be.
We could be dangerous. How about that? Dr. Blessman, we're out of time. We're going to continue this in the second segment, okay? Thank you so much. This is outstanding. I don't know how to put a cap on this because there is nothing that actually contains this kind of thought process and these thinkings about what we're doing and in particular what we're not doing. You know, we got a lot of sins of omission, but we've got just as many sins of commission also. But here again, we're going to continue this. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good. We appreciate it. Good.
It's a pleasure.
Our guest has been Dr. James Blessman, Assistant Professor of Family Medicine and Public Health Sciences at Wayne State University School of Medicine. Next time, we will continue the conversation exploring what this science may mean for healthier aging in our community. For Primary Care, I'm Dr. Lonnie Joe.